Good morning, everyone. We're so excited to have you here today for today's training sponsored by SoCal Gas. I'm Olivia Rios, Director of Operations and Programs at the LA Latino Chamber, and today we will be delving into the CPU certification workshop. We are happy you have joined us to learn more about the advantages of becoming a certified diverse business and gain insight on procurement opportunities. The Supplier Clearinghouse certifies diverse businesses to do business with participating utilities. That includes gas, electric, and telecommunications. Today's guest speaker is Salcedo, who is the Deputy Program Manager of the Supplier Clearinghouse. Ed has extensive experience in developing and managing diverse business programs and has been instrumental in managing diverse equity and inclusion assessments and developing equity action plans for the public sector. This morning, Ed will share the benefits of becoming a certified diverse business, how to apply for certification, and talk about the procurement opportunities available to certified businesses. Before we begin, we ask that you mute yourself, be open to learning. We will have an interactive session, so if you have questions, we'll manage that in the chat box. And we would like all participants to please be on camera. So let's just jump into our session. So Ed, please, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Olivia, and good morning, everyone. This is really exciting for me to be presenting today on behalf of the Supplier Clearinghouse. So first of all, as Olivia mentioned, my name is Ed Salcedo. I am the Deputy Project Manager for the Supplier Clearinghouse. I'm also a licensed attorney here in California, and I am the president of GCAP Services, who operates the clearinghouse. Some of you may not be familiar with the clearinghouse, so my goal today is to try to provide an explanation and some clarity about what we do and how we do it. The overview I'm going to provide shouldn't take us too long. I'm just going to go over the certification process, hopefully answer all of your burning questions about the certification process. So let's go ahead and can we get the presentation started? Thank you. All right, so let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so there are a few things that you should know about the clearinghouse when you're trying to understand what we do and how we do it. First of all, it was commissioned by the California Public Utilities Commission, and it is operating under General Order 156, which is our own regulation, if you will. In addition to General Order 156, the clearinghouse has developed over the years eligibility standards. So the general order is sort of the beginning, and then the eligibility standards kind of provide more detail about some of the burning questions you may have about whether or not you're eligible to get certified. What we do is really focusing on verifying, auditing, and certifying, hopefully for those of you that are interested in getting certified, and then maintaining a database that's accessible to the commission and the utility members. One of the things that we also do recently is we share procurement opportunities. So if one of the joint utility members has a procurement opportunity, or maybe even a prime has a procurement opportunity where they're looking for subcontractors, we share those on our website as well. One of the other things that we do, which I think is really neat, is that we also provide great outreach opportunities. So if there is an event or there is perhaps an opportunity, we will shoot that out to anyone that's in the database that's been certified through the clearinghouse. So let's take a look at the next slide, please. And I want to share with you some of the current participating utilities. There are currently, I think, 23, 24 utilities. These are, as Olivia mentioned, these are some of the largest electric, gas, water, wireless telecommunications, and telephone corporations in California, right? These collectively spend hundreds of millions of dollars here in California for all types of work, right? So you ask yourself, well, why not me, right? Why can't I be receiving some of those contracts and winning some of that work? Well, hopefully you'll get that opportunity, and we'll walk you through how you might be able to do that. So let's go to the next slide, please. So why would you be interested in getting certified through us? There's a lot of certifications out there. Some of you may already be certified, perhaps with the California Department of General Services under the small business certification, or as a disabled veteran business enterprise, or perhaps a disadvantaged business enterprise through the Department of Transportation certifications, or any other certification that might be available to you. Well, why would you want to add another one? Or maybe this might be your first one, right? So let's talk about some of the benefits that you receive being certified through the Supplier Clearinghouse. First of all, utility companies, and this is kind of a hidden gem, and I'll share this with you because these utilities companies, they we have what, 23, 24 of them that currently part of this program. They must be spending in excess of $25 million a year, right? Gross revenues in California to participate. Once they hit that threshold, they must be part of this program, right? So these utilities have and want to work with you, because this is really an incentive for them, right? Once you have been certified, and we have multiple certifications, and I'm going to go through them here in a minute, but once you get certified, it's incumbent upon those agencies and their prime contractors to try to meet certain goals, which again, we'll talk about. Utilities want you to work with them once you're certified. And what do you get once you're in our database, right? First thing is you're going to have an official recognition as a diverse business. You're going to have visibility to the California Public Utility Commission and the utility companies, right? You're going to have the ability to promote to them, right? So you know who they are, they know who you are, and you're going to be included in any marketing or any bid announcement that may be happening through either the utilities or through the Public Utilities Commission themselves. The best news of all is that there's no fee for this. This is a free certification, right? You may want to hire somebody to do that for you to help you get certified, but you don't have to. The certification, which I'm going to talk about, is straightforward, and we charge nothing to get certified. So let's move on to the next slide, please. Okay, so some of the larger utilities have historically, and I don't just mean like in the last couple of years, but like for the last 10 years or so, have historically surpassed the set goals here. We have certain goals that have been set by the CPUC, and you can see here a 15% minority business enterprise goal, a 5% women business enterprise goal, and those two are our primary goals. We have a 1.5% disabled veteran business enterprise goal, and then currently we just started this last year. We have an LGBT goal at 0.5% today, or actually last year, and then currently at 1%, and then in 2024 it'll go up to 1.5%. That's a recent additional category that we added in 2022. We also added a certification for persons with disability business enterprises, and that is just very recent, and currently there's no goals for that at this time. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So women, minority, LGBT owners are some of the types of businesses that can apply for certification. Now, women, minority, LGBT, and persons with disabilities, you must own, and this is very common with certification, 51% of your business to qualify to get certified. And ownership is not enough. So we'll talk a little bit more about the requirement to manage that business, to operate it, and to control it, right? But the key eligibility factor is ownership. You have to own at least 51% of that business. Now, to be eligible for a minority business enterprise, for example, there are certain pursued minority groups, and these include African American, Hispanic Americans, Native Americans, Asian Pacific Americans, and other groups that are defined within GO 156. In addition to that, if you are already certified as a disabled veteran business enterprise, you automatically get pushed into this database. Now, you can opt out, but generally, once you are certified by the California Department of General Services, they share that database with us, and you get a certification through the Supplier Clearinghouse as long as you are certified by the California Department of General Services as a disabled veteran business enterprise. In addition to that, firms that are enrolled with the SBA's program, 8A program, some of you may be familiar with that program. It's a wonderful program, but we're not here to talk about them. We're here to talk about the Supplier Clearinghouse program. But we will take those certified firms, 8A firms, and we will reciprocate and designate them as a certified firm through the Supplier Clearinghouse, as long as that firm is certified as an 8A firm. Let's go ahead and move on to the next slide. And I will pause for questions at the end of my presentation. So those of you that do have questions, we can go ahead and address those at that time. Okay, so now, when you do apply for your WBE, MBE, LGTBE certification, there are 4 types of applications, right? It's your first time, let's say, and you want to get certified. Well, it's going to depend on your revenue, right? If your revenue is less than $3.5 million, then we can jump right into this fast track application. However, if it's greater than $3.5 million, then a standard application is required when you do apply. The fast track is exactly that. There's less documents. There's a couple of requirements. One of them is, obviously being under $3.5 million in annual revenues, but you're going to go through the same review process with less documents. The re-verification application is simply a renewal, and that we certify for 3 years. So it's a 3-year certification. And at the end of the 3 years, probably about 3 months in, before the end of the 3 years, you're going to start to get notifications on a regular basis to remind you to get recertified or re-verified, right? The verification process is a simple process. It's going to only require certain documents, including for your last year's tax return, for example. And then once you do get that recertification, that renewal, then you're going to get another 3 years of certification, right? The comparable agent verification, we call these CAVs, right? These comparable agency verifications are really neat as well. That we have signed agreements, and some of them are MOUs, some of them are different agreements with WBENC, the Women's Business Enterprise National Council, with NMSDC, which is the National Minority Supplier Development Council, and recently with the NGLCC, the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. We just signed, and I'm trying to remember, it was early this year or late last year, an MOU with Disability In for the Persons with Disability Enterprise certification. So if you are certified with any of these firms, we will certify you as long as you are certified and your certification is valid with those firms. That most of those firms that you see here, 1, charge for certification, and 2, only have a 1-year certification period. So if you want to come in under a CAV as opposed to getting certified directly through the Supplier Clearinghouse, then you're going to be limited to that 1-year certification. And as long as you go back and get recertified, for example, with the NMSDC, then we will continue to acknowledge your certification and bring you in under the Supplier Clearinghouse database. All right, let's keep going here. Got just a couple more slides, and then we can open it up for your questions if there are any. So what documents are required for this application? I'm going to go through some of these. I won't go through all of them, but it really depends on your application type, right? All applications are going to require currently we're requiring a notarized participation agreement, this signed affidavit. During the peak of COVID, we did away with the notarization requirement, but we brought it back just recently, and it is something that is required at this time. In addition to that, we're going to need a copy of your most recent taxes. And an extension. If you currently have an extension, you're not able to provide the most current tax returns, we'll accept that. We also, for all new applications, want to see proof of either U.S. citizenship or legal residence, right? Very important. And then depending on the application, we're going to need to see some kind of proof of ethnicity, gender, or LGBT status. Now, for ethnicity or minority status, for the MBE certification, this is going to include, for example, a copy of a birth certificate. If your birth certificate doesn't include your race, which some of the new ones do not, right, then we would need to see your parents' birth certificate. And sometimes it even requires you to show your grandparents' certificate, just depending on whether or not we can determine the minority or ethnicity status. The other thing, for example, for WBE, you'll need a proof of gender. That's a little easier. Most of the time, it's going to be on your birth certificate or even a copy of a driver's license. So there could be other documents that are required to show ownership. For example, if you're a corporation, maybe your bylaws or your articles of incorporation, perhaps resumes to show that you have the technical capacity to do the work. Sometimes in terms of control, we might want to look at your bank signature and information to ensure that you have the authority to operate and control the business. Perhaps capital contributions. If we have many applications that come in with multiple owners, or perhaps even a husband and wife or two spouses. And we want to make sure that both spouses have contributed to the business. So these are some of the things that you should be thinking about. The CAV application, which is the easiest one, requires a current copy of your either WeBank, NMSDC, NGLCC, or right now the Disability N certification. Okay, let's move on to the next place. I know that was a lot of information, guys. So fortunately, and I hope it's fortunately for all of you, we have an online application system. This is a pretty streamlined process, very user-friendly. You essentially get on the supplierclearinghouse.com, probably the longest URL you're going to type, but so the website itself is very straightforward. You can go through and get your online application, scan your documents. We recommend you PDF as many of those documents that you need to upload, and then you just go through the process. We're going to review those applications. We are trying to get all of these done as quickly as possible. We have a very good track record, and we are getting really, our performance is measured based on how quickly we can process applications. We're going to review these within 4 weeks. And so what can happen, right? What can delay your application? Well, if you're missing documents, right, which happens, or sometimes there's red flags with documents don't jive. And this happens a lot in small corporations, especially. Your articles may say one thing, your statement of information says something else, or you show that, here's my contribution, it shows one number, your minutes shows a different number. Sometimes we help you get your act together when it comes to your corporate documents, right? But that's what's going to slow us down. But other than that, we process pretty quickly, right? So a couple more things. Let's look at the next slide here. And so once you get onto the website and you start to apply, you'll get a dashboard like this. And then you'll see on the right-hand side, and I know this is small print, so we're not going to try to read this, but in the right-hand side, there is a section called Key Actions, right? So once you are logged in, you either apply for certification or you renew, you go to that Key Actions, you find what you need there, and you say, oh, renew and apply certification. Now, there are training videos. We do encourage looking at those if you are having issues with the process, but we're also available for you. So if you figure out, okay, this is not going in very well for me, we're available. You can email us. We even have an 800 number you can contact us, which I'm going to show you on the next screen. But we're here to help you, right? Our goal is to really make this experience a positive one, get you through it, and get you on the road to getting more and more work. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned, here's our contact information. Apologize for the long URL, but that is our website. That's where you can go and get a bunch of information, including getting certified. You can find out about eligibility there. You can find out a lot of different things related to the certification process, including access to general order, access to the eligibility standards, etc. We do have an email you can access. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we have an 800 number that we are operating from 8 to 5 Pacific Standard Time. And if you reach us and we're not there because it's outside the business hours, we will call you back as quickly as possible. We have typically a 24-hour rule here internally to try to get back to any of our calls immediately. So with that, I want to thank all of you for listening to me tell you about the Supplier Clearinghouse. And I don't know if we're going to open up questions or if we're going to go through the chat to look at those questions now at this point.
Hello. All right. So this is Olivia. So let me scan through the chat box real quickly. So do you need any other certification, Ed, aside, to be certified through the clearinghouse?
No, not at all. You can come with no certifications, and we will, based on the eligibility criteria that's required. And again, if you go to the website, it actually walks you through some FAQs. What do I need to be certified? Am I eligible? It'll give you sort of step-by-step eligibility answers to your questions. So we have a really kind of streamlined process just to understand right up, are you eligible? And then once you want to get certified, it's pretty straightforward to get certified. You just have to have some business records. Some of you may not have, for example, 3 years worth of information because maybe it's a startup, it's a new business, and that's okay. We just explain that in your application and we'll get through it that way.
That leads to my next question. What if my company is new for 2023 and I have not filed this year? So how long do you need to be in business in order to apply for the certification?
Yeah, that's a great question. So one of the challenges we'll have with a business that hasn't filed, if let's say you just did a startup last month and you're just maybe 2-3 months into operations, as long as we can look at your business records, look at your information of your startup, how you started, whether or not there was any contributions to the business, as we can do that. What we'll typically do when it comes to looking at tax information, we'll typically flag that for a maybe 6 months out. We'll come back and look at it, or maybe at the renewal, the 1 year, the 3-year renewal, we'll come back and ask for that. But we generally will like to go back and check when there aren't any taxes after the tax year and request that tax information at that time. Okay. But it doesn't preclude you from getting certified.
So I noticed that I believe Anne had mentioned that the gas company has surpassed their goal consecutively year after year. And then Ed, you had mentioned that actually 40%, those who have gotten 42% of minority suppliers. Do you track them after and see how many of them actually got contracts with any of the utility companies at all? And if not, what is not happening?
Good question. So first of all, the Supplier Clearinghouse operates the certification program.
Right.
And so let's say we have let's just say 25 utilities, cable companies, cellular companies, water companies. Yeah. And so we don't track their procurements. They all track their own procurements. They're required under the general order to submit a report every March of every year of how they did. And this en banc that we talked about earlier when we were off camera, this en banc is an annual event. It's open to the public. And we present in front of the Board of Commissioners for the CPUC how these utilities did. Now, there's a walk of fame and there's a walk of shame, right? There's like, hey, you guys did great and you guys did terrible, right? But every single utility is responsible for reporting their spend numbers to under the general order, at least annually and in front of the commissioners at the en banc event.
And the reason I ask that, Ed, is it seems to me like you really have it down in regards to assisting many minority companies to get certified. And so how would you then be able to measure or know that these minority companies have the infrastructure and the capability of ensuring that they can go after contracts? I mean, that's what I'm just saying is, if it's not happening, this is a very challenging time to be a small business, minority small business. and you can get all the certifications you want, and if it's not happening, how do we make sure that we close that gap? Is there, and I just, maybe Ann can answer that, are there measures in place to ensure that we're all a part of this, you know?
Yeah, let me start, and then Van, you know, I welcome your comments as well, but you know, you make an excellent point, Anna. The supportive services side, and you know, technical assistance and really mentoring of small and especially, you know, businesses owned by women and people of color, you know, is super important for a lot of reasons. Right? We know it. We see the census numbers. We see, you know, statistics. Not only are you know, minority firms and women-owned firms the fastest growing, they're also the ones that close the fastest too, right? And so there's a lot of challenges here. We know it. The things that we try to do is provide support in any means and fashions. Outside of Supplier Clearinghouse, we have been operating in the past supportive services programs for larger organizations like the Caltrans, for example. We ran that supportive services program, which is really helping these businesses figure out how do you write a proposal, how do you you know, do marketing, how do you deal with estimating, you know, all of those things that can slow down a small business, right? One of the things that many of these utilities do, and then again, I'll let Ann speak on behalf of SoCalGas, but I know that some of them have these types of programs. They have training programs for small businesses. And I want to emphasize something that's very important here. Unlike the DBE program or the state's small business program, the Supplier Clearinghouse program is not a small business program, right? If you are a minority or a woman-owned business, and you could be extremely large, you know, we have some very large businesses that are minority-owned that are not small in the program. However, over half of our certified firms are less than $1 million in annual revenue. That shows you that there are a ton of small businesses certified through our program, right? But it's not a small business program, right? So, but there are many small businesses that require support and assistance. And I know the utilities have stepped up, some of the larger ones, and put together their own programs to help those businesses that need support.
Okay. And I have one more question. Out of that 42% of minority suppliers, how does a company like Gas Company, for instance, and how do they measure that we're all part of this diversity inclusion group now? How do we know Blacks versus Asians versus, you know, Latino companies? What percentage are you hitting your mark in regards to those minority groups? And are we fair? And the reason I'm asking is, of course, we're part of the LA Latino Chamber. You know, are we hitting our mark? What can we do on behalf of, you know, working with people like Ed to ensure that not only are we going through the certifications, but we're taking every opportunity to hit our mark in regards to the opportunities given to us by the utility companies?
So thank you for that, Anna. Appreciate that question. I think Ed covered the part about the training, and that is very important to SoCalGas, the workshop. For example, there's like this workshop that LALCC is providing for its members. These are part of the sessions that help us, they help your members who are new to certification or to business to grow. And that's why we support this type of workshops. And it's across the board. It's not just for Latino business owners, it's for LGBT, it's for Asian Pacific, it's for African Americans. So we have a full gamut of workshops that we offer for minority businesses. And we also have to, in our annual report, not just the unbank that Ed mentioned, every year in our annual report, which is filed to the CPUC, and it's available on our website also, and also on the CPUC website. It becomes a public document. We have to document what we did the previous year with all minority companies, how many we brought on board. So I'll give you an example. Last year, we brought in 146 new diverse suppliers. Of 500, we have over 578 diverse suppliers in 2022, 146 were new. And out of that, last year we spent over, like I said in the chart, over $1.1 1.03 billion with diverse suppliers. That's 42% of our annual total procurement with in products and services we spent with minority suppliers. And just to show you how we're doing, our total spend with Hispanic Americans, because in the annual report, you can go in and see we actually categorize our spend according to minority women, minority men, and then we also break it down to the different minorities. We'll say Native American, Hispanic American, African American, LGBT. We have a breakdown of how much we spend both for the female and male category and the total. So we have to show that in our annual report, so you can see how much spend we're having with especially Hispanic Americans. Last year, our total spend with Hispanic Americans was over 360 million, total with 360 million, and that's about 15%, and we are still growing. The top minority supplier for Salcedo gas is actually Hispanic. They have and it's, if you want that information, you can find it. But we do show how our breakdown is. So we work, and we also have to break down the number of workshops we have, how many participants we have in the workshop. So like last year, we had over 2,300 participants in workshops that were provided by Salcedo Gas. So we want to make sure that we are open and transparent about the work we're doing with our diverse suppliers. So one other thing I also wanted to add is when we get a request that some a vendor needs to be certified, we actually really work hard to make sure that our vendor is certified. We work with the CPUC Clearinghouse. They're very easy to work with. They've been very receptive, very supportive. And if we feel that they meet certain requirements, that they meet the requirements and we really need to work with them, or we need to record their spend for that year, we'll ask them to fast track the review process. And as Ed said, and as I said, it's free certification. You don't have to pay for it. CPUC, the clearinghouse is very, very, yes, they're very, very easy to work with. They will call you, they'll call me back and tell me, hey, they'll give me an update. I'm working with this supplier and this is what we're doing, this is where we are at, and we'll get updates, regular updates. So we do our best to make sure that we're working with diverse suppliers, and we're very passionate about it. We have a full program. We're required by the CPUC. The General Order 156 requires the utilities, investor-owned utilities, to have a DB program, a supply diversity program, and it has to be staffed. So every year we have even to show, even for the on-bank, we have to show the org chart, the organizational chart, and show that we do have a program in place. So we do our best.
Thank you. Thank you.
I hope I answered your question, Anna.
Yes, thank you. I'm gonna go on your website and look at the annual report. But I do have one other question, Ed, for you. So you're saying that it needs to be reviewed revisited and I guess renewed every 3 years. Is that what you're saying?
That's right. Yes.
So is there anything in place, say for instance, I have a company and I got certified, and within those 3 years, I haven't been able to secure any kind of contract. Is there another level of certification, training, revisiting? What is my company not doing, or what can I do more of, do better of, to advance my opportunity to, secure something?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. And I think I have seen some of the questions in the chat as well that kind of talk to, the effort that goes into getting certified, and what's the return on my investment, right?
Right.
How do I benefit from this? And that's a great question. The Supplier Clearinghouse, and I mentioned this in one or two of the initial slides, we're responsible for the certification process. We're responsible for ensuring that you understand that process. We walk you through it and we process it. And sometimes we have to deny you. You have a right to an appeal. You have a right to protest. You have a right to administrative hearings, right? And so we support that. However, one of the things we are not doing as a Supplier Clearinghouse is providing supportive services. We're not allowed to coach the applicant We're not allowed to train them and so forth. That's not in our purview. It's something
Okay.
that we've been told that we should not do. We do it a lot for other engagements, right? This is, one of my passions, quite candidly, is to support minority-owned businesses and women-owned businesses, with really the business development, right? It's really one thing I learned a long time ago. We have a lot of great people here today on this call, but if I would have said, hey, look, we're going to have this training and we're going to have 3 prime contractors for the city of LA that are looking for subs, right? You would have 5 times more people on this call today, right?
Right,
Because it's dollars, right? It's business, right? And we understand that. And so we try to figure out ways to really help these businesses any way we can through technical assistance, mentor protege programs, and through supportive services programs. And these utilities have it. We're not allowed to do it, unfortunately, but many of the utilities have it. I know they do because I've seen their programs, and some of them are terrific. So if I were a business that was just getting certified and maybe has been certified and was not, capturing work, or the work rate, in terms of my win rate was really low, and you're starting to, scratch your head thinking, what am I doing wrong here? What can I do better? Right. My recommendation to you is to talk to the utilities, talk to the primes, understand from them what they're looking for. Because I can tell you one of the things I do, and we've been operating for 25 years, right? So we're not a spring chicken in terms of our business, right? When we lose work and we're starting to get like a trend for a certain type of work we're losing and we're not capturing the work, we always go for the debrief. Even when we win, we ask for a debrief. We want to understand. And if we don't get enough information from debriefing, we will pull those records through the Public Records Act. We will want to look at the proposals that won, the score sheets that got, and we want to understand what happened. What did we do wrong? And sometimes we find out, hey, we came in second. We came in real close second because we overpriced it, right? We estimate it was too high or whatever, but that's what you should do. You should always try to find out, why are you losing? Why are you not capturing it? I just read an article yesterday about businesses focusing on their core competencies. As small businesses, sometimes you get pushed in different directions. Some client wants this, you want that, you see these opportunities and you spread yourself too thin. It's kind of like that spray and pray, right? I want to try to get as much as I can and pray that I catch or something. Focus on what you're good at. Focus at your core competency and figure out how you're going to be able to capture the work. Why is your competitor getting the work and you're not, right? And many times it's a simple solution, right? It's estimating, it's perhaps not spending time going out and visiting with potential clients, etc. So, I don't have a magic bullet. I don't have a silver bullet here, guys, but I can tell you that it's really up to each business to try to figure out how to capture that work. And there are a lot of great resources out there, right? And, you guys are one of them, with the chamber, but there are great resources in terms of small business development centers, the Minority Business Development Agency and some of their centers. There is SCORE and many more that are out there that are there to help you. And I recommend that if you are not being successful in capturing the work that you want to go after, take advantage of those free resources.
Thank you. Thank you.
I put up my hand because I wanted to add to kind of answer your question, Anna. As a business, what I also would encourage a lot of businesses, either which are starting off or which are kind of stagnating, or you feel like you need to move in a different direction, joining an organization, a community-based organization like Los Angeles Latino Chamber of Commerce, others. That is very helpful because a lot of utilities, we actually really don't advertise our RFPs or procurement, but you will find them in an annual report. If you go to our annual report on our website, you will find information. You will find information about what we are planning for this year. So the 2022 report shows what our plan for this year is. It kind of gives you a snapshot, doesn't give you all the RFPs that are going to be out there, but it gives you the bigger ones that we are planning to have either within this year, within the next 2 or 3 years, or next year. So another way is to go into our annual reports and see what is coming up. We really don't go out on our website and say, oh, we're having an RFP coming out. And also, when you join a community-based organization, you're able to work with all the CBOs. We go to their events. We have matchmaking, what they call business matchmaking. We meet new vendors through, we've met a lot of new vendors through some of these events that we've gone to. We are told sometimes you'll be, oh, I'm looking for this kind of vendor. And when I go to an event and then I'm like, oh my God, this is the person that we were actually looking for. We wanted the kind of services they're offering. So this kind of events that NALCC offers to its members are really helpful. And then you get to meet all the utilities. And also going to the web to some of these primes, they have also events that they also do matchmaking and they get subcontractors to those kinds of events. So it's very important to be aligned with an organization and a CBO like yours in order to get those opportunities going.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. So if I may continue with questions. So the next one is from Juan. How do you prove that you are an LGBT?
So that's a good question. So for LGBT, we require either, well, first of all, if you are already certified through the NGLCC, simply that certification that you have from them, we'll accept it and we'll get you certified that way. The other way is if you come in and say, look, I want to get certified under your LGBTBE application process, we would require one letter from an organization that sort of endorses you as an LGBT member. So there's obviously there's no other type of document that's required, simply a letter from an organization. And there are many organizations, including here in California, that would write you that letter.
Okay. Next question. I'm a woman, Latina, AAPI. Would I get both women-owned and minority-owned certifications, or will I be able to apply for one? If
That's a
only
great
one, which one would be better to apply for?
Well, that's an excellent question. Let me answer the first part of that question, and that is that today the general order distinguishes certifications between WBE and MBE. So if you are a minority woman, you would have two certifications if you qualify for both, right? And so you would have, and now in terms of which one is better, to be candid, it's a flip of the coin, because what happens sometimes is, let's say, and I'm not going to speak on behalf of Ann, but let's say that SoCalGas is really hitting it good with their MBE numbers, but they need WBE participation because they're not meeting that goal. Well, they might be more prone to be looking for WBE, vendors in that scenario, right? So it's hard to tell. They're both excellent certifications, and in many cases, if not most cases, either one will suffice. But it's good that you can have both, because you can show them both and say, look, which one's better for you? And say, oh, we really need your WBE certification right now because we're behind on our goals for that particular category, right? So that's what I would say.
Speaking of certification, what's the cost benefit of your certification if my firm is already DGS Small Business, DBE, MBE certified, as well as being on the LA County Masters list? It takes time and resources to go through all these certifications, but the upside is limited. So why would someone who has all these certifications want to get a CPUC?
Great question. Another great question. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to tell your members and anybody on this call today, don't go get certified just to add another certification to your list, right? Understand what that certification stands for, right? So if you're going after like your California DGS SBE or SB certification, that only works for you when you're dealing with state-funded work, when you're dealing with state agencies, right, that have their 25% small business goal, right? That's where that works for you. If you want to go get Metro's SBE program, that's because you want to work with the LA Metro, right? If you want to get the DOT's DBE program, then you're going to deal with the DOT, the either state DOT, Caltrans, or any of their subrecipient, transit agencies, transportation agencies, LA Metro, Metrolink. I'm trying to remember what's out there. Access for paratransit, but that's because you're now in transportation. So if you're not seeking work with a utility, right, with SoCal Gas, SDG&E, PG&E, Verizon, AT&T, if you're not seeking work with them, don't get your certification. All right. But if you are in the utility space and you want to go after work, whether you're a caterer or whether you're an underground utilities company or an engineering company, whatever it might be, if you want to work with that market, then go get your certification. Now, whether or not those other ones are going to be, you talk about cost benefit analysis, right? It is cumbersome and it's an intrusive process, right? It's a very intrusive because you're kind of putting all your personal information and you're giving it to somebody. And now you got to renew it every 3 years, et cetera. That's your choice, right? If you're not getting benefit from certifications, then don't do it. But on the other hand, the opportunities are amazing, right? The opportunity to get a contract with, SoCal Gas, and now, it could be multi-million-dollar contract with them, and you got that work because you were certified, and a prime needed you because SoCal Gas needed them to meet the goal, right? And so, don't close the door because you're currently unable to capture work. It's not, nobody said being a small business owner is easy, right? We have to continue to push forward. And if that's really the market you want to pursue, go after it. And sometimes you're just going to have to, unfortunately, work a little harder and deal with the administrative burden of having to go get recertified or renewed every 3 years or every so often.
Okay.
And to add on to what Ed says, for utilities, I'll speak on behalf of SoCal Gas, and I think other utilities will concur with me. In order for us to report any spend that you have, because we are required every year to report the spend we have with our diverse suppliers in our annual report. In order for us to do that, we can only report spend from a certified diverse business that is certified by the CPUC. So you can be a small business and we will work with you, but we cannot report that spend. So it doesn't benefit us to not have you be certified also. So that's why we encourage you to be certified, because we will not count your spend. And even for primes, we will not allow them, because they have to report any subcontracting spend with diverse suppliers to us every year so that we can add it to our report. So they will also not want to work with you, or they'll work with you, but they won't give you as much work, because if they can't report that spend to us, that means they're not meeting their goal and we're not meeting our goal. So we want you to be certified so that we can also report that spend and be able to say, hey, this is the amount of money we're working with diverse suppliers every year. So it's a benefit to you. And also, as Ed said, if you're in that database, that's a database that everybody in California is going to tap into. It's a big database. It has a lot of vendors. It's broken down into different categories. So if somebody's looking for work, we normally, even internally, people just say, hey, I'm going to go to the CPUC Clearinghouse and see if there's a particular type of work that they're looking for. They'll go to the CPUC Clearinghouse to look for diverse supplier there. We also do that all the time. If we can't find enough diverse suppliers to put on our RFPs, we normally go to the CPUC Clearinghouse and look for diverse suppliers there. So it's a big win for you to get certified and to be in that database.
So is the CPUC only Southern California? Is it all of California? Is it national?
No, it's all of California. CPUC
so
is
California
California
specific only.
Yes, it's California Public Utilities Commission.
All
It's the state agency that oversees, has authority, and regulates all of the utilities in California.
Okay. And then I had a couple questions. Let me just switch real quickly. And Anna addressed some of those questions as to what the goals are, and we can find those on your the annual report on the website. Can you talk about the Arbonne conference? When is that held? Is it open to the public? Is it by invitation only?
I'll say a little bit about it because it's my first year. I'm working on the on-bank report, but my understanding this year it's going to be on September 28th. It's actually the first time they have it in person after after the pandemic. So it's going to be in Escondido. I believe it's on Escondido on September 28th. And it's actually a public forum. So what happens is the utilities, they actually invite the CEOs of the utilities, and then they sit in front. The en banc it's a French terminology. It says on the bench. So you sit in front of a commission or a group of judges. In this case, it's commissioners. Then you talk about your diversity, your program, your supply diversity program, and how you performed the year before, and what are your plans for the current year. So you are kind of like almost summarizing or regurgitating what you said in your annual report, but but this time it's in person now. And so you have to have enough information to back you up from the annual report. And also the public is invited. They have a public forum where you ask questions. They ask questions and you respond to their questions.
Okay.
So it's open.
It's
You
open.
just go to the CPUC website, and you can actually submit your questions beforehand.
Oh, that's
And
great.
Ed, maybe you can also add to that if I missed anything.
No, you nailed it. And
The next question is, you mentioned there's no cost for certification. You can go online and do it for free. Is it tedious, lengthy? Because I know I'll use DGS as an example. There's folks who have applied for DGS certification, and because it's cumbersome, you don't know what to click on, people give up and never do it. So is there support in the event that someone gets stuck during the process, or is there anyone you can recommend that won't charge us for the training?
yeah, no, excellent question. So first of all, it's all relative, right? Tedious, right? It's an online application. It's a lot easier than your paper ones, and a lot of organizations have gone to the electronic or web-based system application process. DGS actually is quite a streamlined process. I think the DGS small business application process is probably one of your easier ones. The DBE one is probably one of your harder ones. Your 8A is really hard. Yeah, if you're going to go for 8A, that's like really hard, right? And so if you're going to grade, I think the Supplier Clearinghouse certification is probably right above the DGS, right? So it's not hard if you're prepared. If you go to the website, see what you have to do. But quite candidly, if you have all your ducks in a row, you have all your documents ready, it's not hard at all. Now, what happens when you start to have problems and you're like, you get kicked back application, or one of the analysts will come back and say, hey, you forgot this, or can you provide this? If the email, the back and forth doesn't work for you, just pick up the phone, we'll talk to you. We'll help you, walk you through it. The reason why we're asking for this is because you provided the previous year, or you provided a separate organization. You had, maybe another company and you provided the wrong one, or, whatever, right? But we'll walk you through what's wrong with the application. What we won't do, and this is where I think, Olivia, your question is very good, because if you need advice, right, and you're looking for help, again, I mentioned some of these development centers, small business development center, depending on where you're at in LA, there's some SBDCs in LA County. There's also, the PTAC offices, right, procurement technical assistance centers that can help you. They're very good at helping you. But if there are also pay, to play kind of consultants, right, that are out there that will certify you or help certify you, and you pay them. And some of them are, unfortunately, they're pretty expensive. I mean, we charge when people want us to certify them, we have to charge for that. And we don't like doing it because it's a lot, because what we're doing is doing it for you. And so it's almost like we're asking you for everything that you're going to provide anyway. So why not do it yourself? Right? Because, we don't have the information, right? So it's like, give me your taxes, give me your, this, give me that. And so we're checking everything out. Oh, we need this. And so, you're giving it to us, right? And we're preparing, your application. What the benefit of hiring somebody is if you have a deficiency, right? If you have something that does not allow you to be eligible to get certified, that person should tell you. right? You're not going to get certified, even though you're 51% owner as a woman, you know, your spouse, let's say your husband is 49% owner. The fact that he had a company and he closed last month under his name, 100%. He's got the engineering license. He's got 25 years of engineering experience. And you were working at a bank for the last 10 years. And tomorrow you want to be CEO of an engineering company. Guess what? That's not going to work. Right. And we'll tell you that. We'll say, look, just because you own 51%, just because you have contributed to the initial funding of the company, just because you're the CEO, and just because you have a degree in whatever you have it in, because what we see here is it just shifting ownership to the spouse for purposes of gaining certification. And you know, anybody will any consultant will tell you, and we're certainly going to tell you that.
Okay, and then let me see, that was okay, I'm going through a few, but those have been responded to. So I've heard where folks who are not, I'll use myself as an example. I'm born in the US, but my parents are from Mexico. One has perished, is no longer with us, but my mom is still alive, for example. And to prove that I'm Latino or Hispanic, of Hispanic descent, and I do you require both certificates, only one birth certificate?
Yeah, good question. We'll take whatever you can give us to show that, you know, evidence that you are a Latina, in your case, Olivia.
All right.
So, you know, in my case, my birth certificate doesn't have that. So I had to get my father's birth certificate, right? And I have the same situation you have, right? So, you know, whatever it takes. Now, what happens, you have to be careful here because, you know, we have people that said, well, I don't have a birth certificate. My parents, you know, they were poor and, you know, the little town they were living in didn't have that. So we're going back to now grandparents. And then it turns out the grandparent was born in, I'm making this up, but Portugal, or they were born in, you know, and it's like, well, wait a minute. Now you're showing us that you're not actually of that ethnicity. You're actually of a different ethnicity, and we're not going to be able to accept your application because in our case, right, and this is a very important distinction, we don't accept Portuguese as Hispanic American, right, where other applications do, some don't, right? And so you have to be very careful with your lineage, right? If you're going to go back that far and you're going to show, we had somebody from India, right? They happen to be Middle Eastern. And when they gave us the application, they're like, well, you know, the fact that you were born there and you can't show me a birth certificate from India, but you show me your parents' birth certificate and they're all from the Middle East, that unfortunately is not going to work for us, right? So be careful, you know, when you do those things, that it's consistent with what you're asking us to look at.
Is there a resource that they could go to, Ed, in case someone wants to be certified but is not English speaking?
It depends on the language. Since we're talking with the Los Angeles Latino Chamber, I can tell you that we have 2 individuals that speak Spanish and can help you in Spanish, but we do not have currently any translation services for the application process.
Okay.
But it's a great point. I'm not sure which one of your attendees asked that. It's something that we do a lot in everything else we do. You know, we do, in fact, we have an event tomorrow at San Mateo County where we're translating the event, and we look to what languages are required. So we have sometimes multiple translations or interpretations sometimes. So we don't do it today, but it's certainly something that, you know, as all of you know, with Google technology, you can click a button, you can see a page in Spanish versus English. No one has ever asked us for that. So, but again, we have to look at multiple languages because we do have a very diverse state, and you know, I'm going to make a note of that and bring that up on my next call with the CPUC.
So most of our membership is English speaking and very little Spanish. So that's why our programming is all in English. So we apologize for that. But, you know, for time's sake, it's 10:05. I want to make sure that we thank Ed. And you just gave us a wealth of information. I only can like scratch the surface because there's so many A certifications. There's so much content. You know, I'm not a subject matter expert, but you are. And I think you delivered an excellent presentation, something, food for thought for those who really want to do business with the utilities, which is important. I know that Anne has tried, is doing really good at what she's doing, and providing us information and giving it to us to distribute to our members. I want to thank Ed and the Clearinghouse for allowing us to bring this webinar to you. So take care and thank you.
Thank you,
Goodbye.
everyone.